Welcome to the Dairy News and Views podcast, a production of the Iowa State University Extension and Outreach Dairy Team. Our podcast covers current educational, research, and industry tools available for your operation to manage healthy cows and calves while producing the highest quality dairy products.
Thanks for joining us today on Dairy News and Views from the ISU Dairy Team. I'm Jen Bentley, Northeast Iowa Dairy Field Specialist, and today I'm here with our State Extension Dairy Specialist, Gail Carpenter, and our Northwest Iowa Dairy Field Specialist, Fred Hall, as we visit about dairy farm labor with Miguel Rangel. So welcome back to the podcast group.
Happy to be here, always.
Absolutely.
Thank you much for inviting me.
Yeah, thanks for being on our podcast, Miguel. And you're with Optimum Dairy Consulting and Recruiting. And so we know that labor management is a very important part of our dairy industry, and that continuing education and retention and recruitment are pretty vital to our dairy farms. And so we wanted to bring you on to have a discussion about that today. And thanks for being with us. And as we get started here, why don't you just give us a little background about yourself and how you became involved with dairy labor management?
Very well. Thank you much for the introduction. Well, I was born in Mexico City, and actually that's where I got my degree. I went to school to National Autonomous University of Mexico in Mexico City, where I got my degree as a veterinarian. But over the time, my grandfather actually he had dairy cows, so a lot of my uncles and relatives are working in the dairy industry, or they work in the dairy industry. So I guess that was something that came natural to me. So I came to the US with one of those visas, the TN visa. Those are the visas that I use right now. I help producers find veterinarians, agronomists to come work in the US with those visas. So pretty much I've worked for 20 years in the US now, and I think I've done everything from milking, pushing cows, breeding cows, feeding cows, to managing the farm, right? So that's why I started this business. I think it's something that I really like to work with people. That's the main thing. I like to work with cows, but I think the most important asset at any place is the people.
That's really well said, I think. And I'll shout out, Miguel and I have had an opportunity to work together a few times over the past couple of years, and I like to bring in a lot of people, everybody on this call actually, as a guest speaker in class. But Miguel is one of consistently, no offense to Jen and Fred, consistently Miguel is very highly rated by the students, and they always kind of shout back to when he comes in and talks to them about working with labor, because it is such a really important topic. And I think a lot of times, especially those of us here with our background in like dairy science, we really focus on the cows, but you can't do anything with the cows if you don't have the people to do the work, right? And you can't do anything with the cows if you don't have the people that actually get the work done. And people can really make or break the success of a farm, right? I love walking on the farms where things are just in sync and the people are working together, and you can tell that there's a great culture there and people are kind of on a team. And it's such a great feeling. And then sometimes you'll walk onto a farm and you'll get kind of a different feeling there too. Miguel, for you, what are some of the big labor challenges you think dairy farms are facing today? And are you seeing any trends over time and how farms are approaching labor management and retention?
Yes, I think it's always labor, right? It's always difficult to find good help. It's always difficult to find help. And I think part of the issue is that, this is a first world country. This is a country where people have access to higher education. So you have entry-level jobs that are not that appealing for a lot of the population because, well, they can go to college, get a degree, and do something else. And I think that is an issue. That's why there are not that many employees, or there are not that many dairy farms who could say, oh yeah, I have always a lot of people asking for a job. The reality is that that doesn't happen. So now, what are the trends that I'm seeing? One of the things that I've seen, and I see more and more, is that a lot of the producers, they are more engaged on what's happening, or this kind of questions. Like that's a question that Gail asked me. I have more producers asking, how can I keep my employees? What do I need to do? I think it's been a shift from how we used to manage farms in the past. And I heard this phrase from someone that they used to say, no news is good news, right? Like if the boss is not saying anything, that must mean that we are doing our job correctly. But I think this has changed because now you have owners who said, but how do I know if my employees are really happy or if they are satisfied with that, what they are doing? So I see this trend where owners, managers, herdsmen, they are more in tune with what they need to do to keep their employees.
Miguel, what's a common misconception about dairy labor that you see out there that you need to correct?
I think that's a good one because I think a misconception is that, and I know there is a language barrier, cultural difference, but that misconception, a big one is when you think any employee could do any job, and that is not true. I mean, some employees they don't even like cows, for example, or calves. So bringing someone that really doesn't have it, it could be an issue because you wouldn't get the results that you are expecting. So I think that's a misconception that just any employee can do any job. Another one, which is related to that one, is that you think that any employee can leave. Some employees could be 10 years into that dairy. They could be a very good employees, but leading people is a different thing. And some employees don't feel comfortable doing that. Sometimes they get a promotion because they are very good employees, and they get that promotion in the form of, okay, now you're going to be crew leader, but they don't have the skills to perform that job. So, and the same goes to the owners, or in this case managers. Not everybody is suited to lead. There are things that need to be learned, right? And those are the kind of questions that I get, and those are the kind of things that I see when I am working with someone. Like, how is this person? How is this person by himself? Is he a good leader? How is the team? And ask questions, right? So two of the most important misconceptions, I would say, regarding farm labor.
As you're talking about that, I think I don't think any of our administrators are listening to this, but I'm reminded of different universities I've been in, not Iowa State, of course. And it seems like a lot of time, and I'm sure a lot of people listening have had the experience of a boss that gets promoted because they're good at their job, but
Mhm.
uh, but just because you're good at what you're doing on a day-to-day basis doesn't mean that you're good um, at the leadership role, because a leadership role's day to day is much different than
Mhm.
working cows, pushing cows, milking cows, breeding cows, as an example. So,
And before I forget about that, is even the stress level. I mean, leading
yeah.
people is like, just like you mentioned, it's not just, okay, I milk cows and that's a mechanical work, but leading people, it taxes you mentally.
Hmm.
Plus, you have more responsibilities. And that is something that not everybody is, like I said, prepared to do. And that could be an issue because the long term the long-term consequences could be that you lose employees, that the protocols are not followed, employees are burnt out. They used to be friends in the past, and now he's the supervisor,
Yeah.
and he's telling you what to do. That friendship is at stake. They may not be friends anymore. So there are a lot of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about how starting on the right foot, right? I think there's a lot of data out there that shows that onboarding is a really key, crucial part of retention. So talk me through how you have employees start at the farm, or how you encourage like best practices that producers can use while they're onboarding and starting their employees.
Mm-hmm. And I would say that I agree, like you said, even this is science backed. You can see how farms or businesses in general who have a very good onboarding protocol, they have employees who first they know what to expect as far as the work that they are doing and what to expect from the organization. They know who the boss is, they know who they report to, they know who the co-workers are, and they understand the duties and responsibility. This is when you get to work, this is the time you leave. We have a code of conduct, or you can just call it expectations, which is this is what I expect from you as far as the quality of your work, arrive on time. We have warnings, we have meetings. Meetings are mandatory. I mean, all those things that you want your employees to know before they get to the farm. And I think that helps a lot because not having that is like going into a highway without center lines or without pretty much a guide for you to know where the rails are. So that helps a lot. Not only that, but it gives employee a sense of peace because if something is not going the way they were thinking, they can always review that onboarding, or it gives the owners that sense of I am giving this employee everything that I want him to do, plus I am giving him everything he needs to succeed. So you are going to be listened, you are going to be, we are going to meet, right? You are going to be rewarded. And obviously, if things are not going the way they are supposed to be going, we are going to talk. But I think that gives both that like peace of mind.
Yeah.
So how important is that to be written, that you have an employee handbook?
You know, and it doesn't have to be a very lengthy treaty, right? It could be just, I mean, in some places we just have one page. But if it is written, is better because that way everybody knows this is what we talked about and this is what we agreed to do. So it's going to be in a place where everybody can see it. Could be the break room, could be the office, I don't know, locker room. So everybody knows. So every time there is a new employee, that new employee knows that when they go to that place, they ask him for a few, or they ask him to perform. There are expectations. So those expectations are there where they can see them, right? And it goes both ways because the owner also is held accountable for what you guys agreed. Okay, we agreed on doing this. This is how much I'm gonna pay. This is how much work we need to do. This is the time we start activities. This is the time we get off. So all those things are important to have in written. So yeah, it doesn't have to be lengthy, but definitely written.
So how are you, is onboarding kind of the linchpin for you when it comes to recruiting as well? Or do you have, as you're recruiting people onto a farm, are there other things that you need to be thinking about before they even get there?
Definitely, I like to talk to the client as much as possible of what the expectations are for him, from everything from duties, responsibilities, salary, even living quarters. They send me pictures of where the employee is going to live, for example. So all that information is transferred to the candidate. In this case, if I am hiring for a farm that they need someone to breed, well, this candidate, I already vetted the candidate, so I know it's going to be a person that is a responsible person, right? And we go through the expectations. It's difficult that someone, after seeing what the expectations are, it's difficult that someone would say, you know, I just don't want to do it, right? Because a lot of these expectations are just expectations that any other normal business or serious business would require. And if someone doesn't agree, there must be a different reason. But if the expectations are agreed by both parties, then once the employees in the US, each company they have just maybe just a document like this one, maybe an employee handbook that they sign. But if not, we can always have something for them, right? Something even like I said, short, just with the basics, because I know dairy farming is, well, it's a busy endeavor. So not all farms have an HR departments. But if you don't have an HR department, there are some things that we can work with so everybody understands what the duties and responsibilities are. So that's what I
So,
would that's what I would do.
so when you collect that information from the employer and you've already vetted the potential employee, are you creating a job description that they can have in front of them and know, uh, you know, maybe we didn't specifically talk about this, but it's included. Is that a valuable resource for you?
Yes, we actually have a job description. Yes, which is one of the things that I ask clients sometimes. I try to do it very hands off. So I just need to know benefits, pay, and job description. And I obviously expectations, what things are really important. And I always talk to the candidates. And this, in any case, you always talk to employees who you would like to hire about those expectations. Yes, you explain everything and they will be honest. Or, that's why we ask questions like if breathing is not your forte, maybe breathing is not for you then, right? So some farms they are happy with having someone that they can train. Okay, that's fine. But if they need someone to breed cows and the person doesn't have experience breeding cows, then I wouldn't recommend a candidate like that because I know it's not gonna work for that farm. So yeah, that's how. So employees and in this case owners, they give me all the information so the employee knows everything that he needs to know.
So Miguel, I kind of want to go back to some comments that you said earlier about questions that you get from farm managers about retaining employees. You get that question a lot, right? And I think we do too. An extension is how do I keep my employees here? And we've seen that in our Iowa dairy survey and our discussions with our producers over the winter, just talking about retention and whether that be family members or non-family members. It seems we have this turnover on farms. And so what are some strategies that you've worked with producers on to help retain those quality employees?
And yes, it is true. I guess that's a question that it's repeated a lot. But one is like again, is like that misconception that I talked at the beginning. If you're going to be the leader or if you want to take care of the farm as a manager, as a herdsman, I don't know. Well, it is always good to improve or take some leadership classes, read some books, be prepared for that role. Again, not because you don't know what you're doing about cows, but that's the difference. A lot of what we know about cows, we learned, right? We did it, we learned, someone else coached us, someone else told us there are different ways to do this, there are different milking routines, but there are some metrics that we need to keep, there are some things that are very important to keep. So then you learn and you improve. It's the same with leadership. What you want to have is the knowledge to know that okay, I'm dealing with a different culture most of the time, a different generation most of the time. And another thing is how can I show or how can I develop that relationship with this employee so he doesn't feel like he's just an employee, right? Because you need to create that rapport. You need to have that relationship with employees where you care for them. And that's the part that sometimes is difficult. And it is funny because employees notice that. We are, social animals. So we notice when someone deeply care about us or when someone cares about us. So it's the same. And I kid you not, but every time you have employees maybe just helping the guy in maternity, or in this case, let's talk about the owner or the manager helping the guy in maternity pull a calf. That means that that owner is not only concerned about the calf is okay, is the cow okay? No, he's concerned about his employee having a hard time pulling a calf. So he showing up, that is part of that report. That owner or manager saying, okay, we did it. Don't worry. We got this under control. I think that's a good way to create a report that again, that's what a lot of times we need. Saying good morning, saying good night, have a good day, how is your family? I mean, those are things that we genuinely need to do, but not because a book tells you to do so, but because you really want to know about them.
Yeah. The other thing I've heard, Jorge Delgado,
Mhm.
who we are big fans of here. I think I speak for all of us. He works for Alltech right now, but does a lot with recruitment, retention, employee training. Um, I heard him give a talk recently where he talked about the importance of building community. And I think a lot of times when we think about our relationship with employees, we're thinking about our work relationship, right? And exactly like what you're saying. Good morning, good afternoon. I was at a farm recently that had everybody's birthdays posted on the wall, right? And so everybody's like all the employees had their birthdays posted and they knew whose birthdays were coming up. And I think those are all really good things, but Jorge has been encouraging people to think even more deeply about building community for folks outside of work, right? Because if you're a farm and you have employees, but you're not really close to a community center or like not community center like a building, but like a centralized community, or you're from a very small town and most of the people there don't speak Spanish, and we're bringing in immigrant employees that are way outside of their comfort zone, way outside of anything that they know, like thinking about um, how we can improve that sense of community after folks have clocked out for the day. Is that something that you've seen too, Miguel, and something that you think is important? And do you have any advice for dairy producers that are looking to incorporate more of this idea?
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Yes, Jorge also has work. Well, he works with a lot of dairies too. And this is part of what I've seen also, right? That the word is out for owners, producers to kind of get in touch with their employees in a way that maybe they didn't know it was possible, because sometimes the language barrier could be daunting and you are like, I don't know if I am stepping up my bounds. I don't know if this is correct or not. But honestly, you go to a place, let's say employees live in a house that is closer to the dairy, I don't know, maybe having an afternoon where they grill some steaks and have some, drinks before or after harvesting silage, or just because it is summer and we can do it, right? So that those are the kind of things that create that rapport, that sense of community. You invite the rest of the people, and then we have this meeting. No different than sometimes when I go to farms and we have pizza, no? I mean, employees link, oh, Miguel is coming, we are going to have pizza. But obviously, I'm there working, but during the time we eat pizza, we can talk about other things. So, doesn't have to be that way all the time. I'm just saying that doing those activities with employees where it is not work related, it's something different, that helps a lot. Even maybe sending someone to mow the lawn so they don't have to do it, right? So that's what I mean. And yes, it's a very easy way to do it. You don't have to grill hamburgers if you don't have the time, but you can say, hey, today we are all going to order pizza and we are going to have pizza all together. So that helps a lot.
Corey
Now,
talks about
what
soccer tournaments too, right? And letting people, there's things that they think are very cultural, that we wouldn't necessarily think of here in the US. It's not as much of a culture in the US as it is in other parts of the world. And so that's another one that he's kind of thrown out as an idea as well.
And that's a good one, the soccer tournaments. Yes, because I know a
Yeah.
lot of places who do that. And the other one, which I forgot about that one, but we were talking about birthdays, right? So having a cake, or well, it could be a cake for that person whose birthday is coming, or they have a birthday that day. So that is another one, because again, it reinforces the message that, well, you are not just working here, right?
Yeah.
We actually, well, like you, and we want you to be here, and I care about you. So here, let's have some cake.
we kind of touched on a cultural thing, talking about the soccer tournaments or soccer games. What are the cultural things, either to do or not to do you see changing as uh, producers become more familiar with uh, employees from other countries?
Well, again, one in some places it could be many things, but for example, I remember in one farm where the employee needed a vehicle, right? For some reason, his vehicle broke or something. I mean, the thing is, he didn't have a vehicle. So the owners got him a vehicle, right? And that's something that he didn't ask for it. The owners knew how good he was as an employee, and they said, you know what? Don't worry, we can get you a vehicle. Another one, um, there are instances where employees need to go to the doctor, right? And it happens that the owner has connections in the hospital, right? And hey, my employee is going to show up pretty soon. So please, he has this problem, and they are already waiting for him, right? Or they know that he needs to be seen. So those are kind of things where employees feel like, this is not work related, but I feel how I'm not alone on this. Like my supervisor or the owner is taking care of me. And I've seen that a lot. And in those instances, that's where, employees are even more committed because they feel, again, they are not only working, they are appreciated.
All right, I'm gonna transition to something it's a little bit timely and ever changing and maybe a little bit controversial. So I don't think we're gonna get too far into the weeds on this, but tell me a little bit about labor laws that dairy producers should be especially mindful of.
Well, a lot of times, especially, when you are working with foreign employees, yes, there are some things that you need to have in place. When I bring someone, usually I help the producer. Like, these are the documents that you need to have, like the I-9, for example, uh, the W-4, right? And any other document that you may need, for example, like the expectations documents, right? So most likely the expectations document is just for you, right? Is just for you, but it is important to have these other documents because those have information that is specific for that employee, and that's information that you keep because that's how you, well, you are you are filling out those documents that if requested you have them.
I think one of the things we have to recognize is whether you are considering an immigrant to work for you, or the neighbor down the road, there are requirements. The I-9, W-4, all of that applies to everybody who's working for you. Now, when you add the fact that they are not from this country, what you're really asking is, are they legal to work here? And so that requires an identification that is truthful and meaningful. And I think dairymen have a kind of a unique situation where, they have an option. If they can contact the Homeland Security Investigations agent in this area, and they have a system where if you present this ID and this information, they will review it and find out if in fact the person is legal to work here. The good thing about the program is down the road, if an issue crops up, the fact you brought them into the system prevents them from leveraging a fine against you for that particular thing. If in fact you misled them, yeah, criminal charges still apply. But Brent Stanley, they're in Sioux City. He's our special agent for Homeland Security investigations. I call him an asset because 15-minute conversation with him and then utilizing the system he'll tell you about. I think that helps put a safety issue into your hiring process. Have you worked with him, Miguel?
No, I haven't. But his name sounds familiar, but I haven't.
He's done several programs for us up in Northwest Iowa. Like I say, he is a true asset for, and not just dairy producers. I've suggested some poultry people utilize him as well as some swine folks.
Mhm.
And Fred, you have some upcoming programs as well that might be of interest to folks that are listening. Do you want to give your little shameless plug?
You bet. We have a workforce conference coming up on December 2nd. It'll be at Terrace Hill there in Sioux Center. And what we've done is we've got some, I think, pretty amazing speakers. And then we've asked businesses in the community in the morning. We're talking about business, community businesses, the banks, manufacturers. They will tell us a little about them and what they are doing to find and retain their workforce. And then we'll throw it open for questions. So if you have a specific question about how this group finds this skill set, that's the time to ask. Then in the afternoon, we've got Jason Henderson's going to give us a macro view of labor in Iowa and how it's changing. And then we'll have four ag businesses who will tell us a little bit. And they're really kind of unique because why are they here? Why are they located where they're at? That they'll talk a little about that and about their labor force, and then we'll throw it open for questions from the crowd. One of the groups who will be there and presenting is area hospital because, and Miguel touched on it, finding health care, if you're not familiar with the area, is amazingly difficult. I mean, when I moved up here from Texas, it took a while, but imagine if you moved up from Guatemala, whole different system. So having employer who understands his culture and can get you in touch, I think is amazing. So they will be part of the discussion. And then we've got Miguel mentioned housing. We've got one of the regional housing people who's going to talk about what's available and what housing options there are. So we're excited about the program. It's December 2nd. You go to our website, you'll be able to get registered for it.
So currently not registration, not on the Sioux County website, but it will be. Watch that website, extension.iastate.edu/Sioux, SIOUX, to see registration for that conference. And then it will also be posted on our Dairy Team website, which is extension.iastate.edu/Dairy Team. And always feel free to call Fred if you want more information as well.
Thanks for sharing that resource, Fred. I think that really, when we do programs like that, that's really helping to bridge some of those gaps and really connect some of those communication barriers and provide some valuable resources to all our employees that are working on our dairy farms. And Miguel, I think, as we kind of close here, and thinking about, dairy prices and where we are with milk prices, dairy labor is not one that we want to shortchange, right? Because we know that our employees are very valuable to the farm. And so when prices are fluctuating, we're looking at ways how we can reduce cost on our farm, right? But so kind of ending, what gives you hope about the future of dairy labor and how we manage our employees and how we continue to make our farms profitable and efficient?
I think the more we engage in these conversations, and the more the owners or producers engage in improving the communication, the more they train employees, the more they help employees succeed, the better it is going to be. Because I understand this is a conversation that everybody has, like costs, right? How can I reduce costs? And I can tell you, every time you have a new employee, it's costing you, because mistakes are going to happen, because you left or someone left with experience or some sort of knowledge, and then you have someone who you don't know how much experience or knowledge that person has. So yes, working with your employees so what you pay is fair, and at the same time you are getting the results that you want. For example, I remember a farm where one of the employees was not tubing the calves correctly. So what happens is some of the milk was going to the lungs. So you can lose a $1,000 calf right now doing that, right? So that's very expensive. That is a very expensive mistake. So the more you train your employees so those things don't happen, the easier it's going to be for you to justify your margins. And I would say that just one of those aspects that I always mention, and I haven't this time, but you need to always evaluate the culture at your place. When you worry about employees leaving, employees not wanting to work at your place, then you wonder, why are employees not wanting to work here? Or why are they leaving? What is my neighbor doing for that sake, right? How can I make sure that employees actually want to work for me, even if they make less, for example? Because this is true. An employee is not going to leave a job, is going to leave a boss. So if you have the environment, the culture that actually fosters that relationship between employees, management, etc., I think that's going to be the key factor that you need to move your farm forward, because that way you wouldn't be worried about training employees or employees leaving. You will be more concerned about how do we move forward, how do we improve other aspects in the farm instead of training employees all the time.
Yeah, I think that's a great wrap up, Miguel. And as we close here as well, You mentioned earlier you're with Optimum Dairy Consulting and Recruiting. So where can people find your information, or if they have more questions as we follow up here?
Yes, I have my website, Optimum Dairy. Well, that's a website. My email, it's Miguel Rangel, my name, Miguel Rangel, Rangel .dvm@gmail.com. That is my email. And they can always call me. My phone number is 712-254-3822.
Perfect. Sounds good. Gail or Fred, do you have any other wrap-up questions or comments?
No, I'd just say it's always a pleasure to chat, Miguel, and we're great that this time we have a chance to record our chat, and I'm always inspired when I come away after talking about this topic with you. So thanks for your time.
Thank you for your time, Miguel.
Thanks to everybody. My pleasure. Take care.
Thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to visiting with you on the next Dairy News and Views from ISU.
This institution is an equal opportunity provider. For the full non-discrimination statement or combination inquiries, go to www.extension.iastate.edu/diversity/ext.